Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leak Project. I'm your host, Rex Bear, and tonight we're going to be discussing a new book that came out called 6:23 p.m., The Marriage Supper of the Lamb. It's more like an encyclopedia, and Jacob put this together. He said he spent several years, up to 18 hours a day, and he just felt like he was in the zone the entire time. And essentially what this is, folks, is it's almost like a study guide. He's got different graphs, charts, sequences. He takes prophecies. He takes a lot of stuff in the Bible, breaks it down, and shows you what he refers to as the God Code, essentially. It's quite incredible. If you go to leakproject.com and you become a member at Leak Project, you'll actually have access to exclusive content. Just log in, create a profile. It's very easy to do. It's absolutely free. And then that will give you access to podcasts, either streamable or downloadable. You can even get them ad-free. Or you can go to youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord, subscribe, get access to the latest podcasts. Hope you're doing good wherever you are. Have a wonderful day. Be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Talk to you soon. Have you ever seen the series Lost?
You know, I've heard of it. I haven't probably sat down and watched 10 minutes of it. I really never got into it.
The only reason I ask is because there's this really interesting correlation of numbers throughout the series that pop up in different vehicles and behind the scenes, etc. And it's 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. And it had this weird mysticism behind it the whole time. And you're such a numbers guy, I just thought I'd ask. So, all right, well, fantastic. And as I said before, I mean, this thing is literally humongous. The 400 and something pages that it is, each page is like the size of 4 pages. I know that the font is a little bit bigger, which is nice for people like myself so I can read it better. And, you know, why did you put this thing together? How did you get started with this?
Well, I guess it's part of my destiny, you know. It was my gift to humanity. And to always wanted to know all things, or, you know, to go in that direction of understanding why everything is. You know, why is there so many, you know, Bible verses in the Bible? Why is there 66 chapters? I mean, just the questions just never stopped, and I just continued to. So I started my journey back in 1997 when I became a Christian. My grandmother led me to the Lord, and that started my journey. And now here we are, almost 20 years later, and I completed the book in finality about 2 months ago. And it was just my quest of understanding. You know, the Bible says that He'll give us the hidden manna, which is numbers, the hidden bread come down from heaven. And once you understood what the secret was in Daniel, which is understanding of our DNA and how the kingdom of God is within us, so the very dimensions of our DNA hide, you know, the end time scenario. So everyone's walking around, you know, with the truth in them, and it's just about becoming consciously aware of, you know, our ultimate destiny to be co-heirs with Jesus Christ.
And I'm looking at one of the first pages here, and it says, Lord Jesus Christ and His bride of 200 million. The marriage supper of the Lamb. And then you have a reference of Psalms 45:11. But down here, you talk about the number of guests, white horse riders, 144,000. And then wise virgins without number. Location, third heaven, New Jerusalem City. Time, 6:23 p.m. Jerusalem time zone. Day, solar day, 11/11, 2021. Duration, 324 days. Okay. Yeah, man, thank you. You're on it. This guy did write the book. Yeah, you know, it's funny. Sometimes I'll interview people that wrote certain books, and I'll ask them questions, and they'll have to go back and read the material. You were right on the ball with that. That's awesome. So explain this to us. What does this mean?
Well, there's nothing new under the sun, and history is going to repeat itself. Same story, different cast and characters. Just like it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be like at the coming of the Son of Man. You look at Jesus' life was a type and shadow of things to come. What it ultimately means is that the kingdom of God is now going to openly manifest at the same time with when the dragon system of the New World Order launches simultaneously. So if you notice that one of the first things of when Peter spoke, when the Holy Spirit fell, he spoke of signs and wonders in heaven, and that correlation of now our future time of Revelation 12, verses 1 and 2, which will be seen in the heavens, which is a grand sign, a wonderful sign. Many people, it's going all over YouTube. I believe there's people who have been specific books about it. The sign in the heaven, it's a huge wake-up call to humanity, to, you know, God getting our attention. Unfortunately, God's only getting the people's attention that need to get attention. And as we go forward through the tribulation and ultimately into the day of the Lord, there'll be more wake-up signs. But right now, what God is doing is He's raising up people who are receiving the hidden manna, and getting ready to go forth. That's called I don't know how versed you are with the Bible and the book of Revelation, but it speaks of the birth of the man-child. And the man-child is a term used for the 144,000 people that will receive the supernatural power at the same time that the red dragon, Planet X, eclipses the sun at 6:40 p.m. on October 5th, 2017. And when that happens, God will release the latter rain anointing upon these 144,000, whoever they are. And that's really when the tribulation starts, obviously. It's like a barley harvest and a wheat harvest, and that God has to break up the fallow ground. Anytime you want to plant, you always have to break up the ground. And that's ultimately what Planet X is going to do, is going to break up the ground. To launch, it's ultimately a final call of mercy, God's mercy upon humanity, to draw his children back to him. You know, all the world's are playing, we're just actors. And knowing our roles and how we go about to use our gifts and talents to raise up the body of Christ for this end time harvest, and to ultimately bring in peace on earth. So that's kind of an overview synopsis. A lot of people don't understand this, and I want to make this clear for those who are just maybe starting to understand Bible prophecy or a little confusion, is that it's important to remember that there's 7 years of tribulation. And the last 3.5 years of those 7 years is known as the Great Tribulation. But after those final 7 years, there's another year called the Day of the Lord, and that's 1 year long. That represents the Noah's flood year. That's why God came to Noah 7 days before the flood. That represents for our time 7 years. So the story is hidden in the very, breakdown of the days of when the flood came. Why did it rain 40 days and 40 nights? And the reason why it rained 40 days and 40 nights is because when the flood came on the second month, 17th day, and if you go 40 days and 40 nights ahead of that, that gets you to the third month, 26th day, and that's where you find the marriage supper of the Lamb, which is 6:23 p.m. So the first miracle that Jesus did is he turned water into wine at the marriage supper. Well, God, in all of his wisdom and knowledge, he can do whatever he wants. So he told this beautiful story, and by the very dimensions, the number of the water pots, 6 water pots, and the dimensions 2 or 3 firkins. So now you have 623. And sure enough, he did. He hit the exact time of the marriage supper, 6:23 p.m. Jerusalem time zone, of when all this is going to go down, for ultimately receiving new bodies, and then ultimately going to the marriage supper. So when this thing kicks off officially on October 5th, 2017, you go 7 years forward, and that brings you to the Feast of Trumpets, the evening of October 2nd, 2024, at 6:23 p.m. At that point in time, people, all the believers, will get a new body, changed in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. And they will be here for 40 days and 40 nights to witness the wrath of God, just like the ark didn't rise until after 40 days. And same thing. So when the ark rose, that represented the people going to the marriage supper, which is the evening of 11/11/2024. And then for 325 earth days, there'll be the marriage supper of the Lamb in the third heaven. And then on sunset, October 2nd in Jerusalem, 2025, sunset in Jerusalem on that day is 6:23 p.m. Jesus will come, and his feet will touch the Mount of Olives, and a new heavens and a new earth will start. So that's kind of the overview of what's going on.
Now, do you see patterns with these events that take place that kind of etch themselves in stone, such as September 11th, 2001, March 11th, 2011, April 20th, 2010? I'm referring to the Fukushima disaster, obviously the 9/11 attacks, and the Gulf oil disaster.
Yeah, exactly. Well, most prevalent in the Gulf oil disaster is that actually occurred on April 20th, and Gulf oil did collapse on April 22nd. And the reason why that occurred is because that's when Satan was kicked out of heaven, April 22nd. So when the Great Tribulation starts, okay, so you have the wake-up call. So right now there's a wake-up call going to believers across the world, the sign in the heavens, Planet X. People are going to start to figure things out. Well, the people who are going to wake up are the 144,000 and then the bride of 200 million. The virgins, they go back to sleep. They couldn't catch that one. But when Satan is kicked out of heaven at the fifth seal, at April 22nd, 2021, at 7:13 p.m. Jerusalem time zone, sunset in Jerusalem, people, the believers, the martyrs of Jesus Christ will come out of the grave. And there'll be huge explosions out of the grave, like all over the world. And then they'll vanish. at 7:13, 57,504 milliseconds actually of the day, along with the 144,000. At that time, the man-child of the 144,000 will now officially receive the kingdom and come back. And that's when now the mark of the beast is full blown. That's when it's time to truly run to the woods and get off the grid. And for the remaining 1,260 days, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of martyrs and stuff, believers, due to the fact that the beast system is in full effect now.
You think the beast system is in full effect right now without the microchip society?
No, full effect will be the tattoo. It'll be an ink tattoo. It won't be an actual RFID. The RFID is in the ink.
The RFID is what, in the hand?
And the RFID chip itself is in the ink. The mark of the beast will be a tattoo.
I've heard that theory before, yes.
Yes. So,
okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say.
So we have a lot of things going on. We have a lot of amazing things we got coming up in the future. And what wakes the wise virgins up is ultimately people come up out of the graves.
You mean it's going to be something like out of Walking Dead, where these things, people just start?
No, they come up. These are martyrs in Jesus Christ. They come up out of the graves wearing white robes and then vanish.
Oh, like literally going to come out in white robes and then
literally come out of the grave and be seen by the world wearing white robes and then vanish.
And have you put a time frame on this yet?
That's April 22nd at 7:13 p.m. Jerusalem time zone, 2021.
Okay.
That's why the Gulf oil rig collapsed on April 22nd, because at that time, that's when Satan's kicked out of heaven.
And that was like a ritual used for that, or what?
Yes.
What about the 9/11 ritual then? What was that purpose?
That was the merging of the whole premise of launching, saying, here we are, it's our time. It's actually the merging of the DNA from their perspective of transhumanism. And so now we had the World Trade Center's representation of DNA merging into one. It's also about merging computer technology with humanity. Because Satan wants to try and do what God can do. Well, God can be everywhere all the time. He can't do that, so he has to set up the grid, whatever you call it, so he can be like us. And that's ultimately what it's all about. There's a great test coming. And if you don't pass the test, then it's not a good situation.
Now, walk us through the string of events from now until that date that you just gave us in 2021.
Okay, so we have, right now, we're in the beginning of sorrows. Right now, you could officially say we're in the beginning of intense sorrows now. Revelation 12, verses 1 and 2, will be fulfilled in the heavens during the day, actually, so we couldn't even see this through actual technology. And then, on October 5th, the red dragon, Planet X. So if you look at Revelation 12:3, I don't know if you have your Bible there or not. Revelation 12:3 speaks of the dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay? I'm sure you've heard this.
Oh, yeah, I've read Revelation many times.
Okay, so the chapters and verses hide dates and times, so I'll give you an example. So when it's October 5th, Gregorian calendar, it's going to be October 7th, Julian calendar. Okay? So the very description of the 7 heads and 10 horns hides the day that it's going to come. October 7th, 7 heads, 10 horns, October 7th. And that's in Revelation 12:3. Well, it's going to eclipse the sun 321 minutes from the end of the day.
Is there a specific year, though, or just the month?
2017.
2017. Okay. So Revelation 12:3, you have deciphered is going to happen in 2017, and it would be October 5th, our calendar.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And 321 minutes from the end of the day is 6:40 p.m., which is when there's a full moon occurs.
Now, a lot of stuff that you read about in the Bible and even Revelation is going to parallel with what the stars are doing in the heavens, in space. So what is your translation of what actually takes place on that day?
On October, when the red dragon comes through?
Yeah.
Well, the mantle is going to shift. There's going to be tsunamis, earthquakes, hail of fire, you name it. The first trumpet will be blown. And also the supernatural power that 144,000 people, whoever they are, will receive. And that's it. Then we're off and running into the tribulation.
Now, how long is this tribulation going to last?
The tribulation officially lasts for 7 years. Yep. The first 3.5 years represents just the tribulation in general, and then the great tribulation comes the final 3.5 years. So a total of 7 years, and then the day of the Lord is 1 year, and that follows the 7 years. See, we're not appointed unto wrath. A lot of people don't understand. The wrath of God is that final 8th year. The tribulation and great tribulation is not the wrath of God.
So what's going to happen the 8th year then?
That's going to be the day of the Lord, and America will be destroyed. When America is destroyed, that's exactly when the believers get the supernatural body.
Now, as we're going through this, I'm thinking about just these incredible scenes unfolding in people's eyes. How many people are going to be around to see that?
Well, there's going to be, to see the actual, as far as to say there's 7.5 billion people right now, how many people are going to be around to see the witness of the destruction of America in the world?
Yeah.
Great question. I don't know. I think there's going to be at least a third of destruction during those 7 years.
Okay. Well, walk us through some more of these just incredible parallels you put together and these dots that you've connected. I mean, this is incredible. I would strongly recommend somebody pick up, if you're into numerology and the series that came out, God Code, that documentary that talked about how you can decipher certain events in the Bible. Folks, I would strongly recommend picking up a copy of 6:23 p.m., The Marriage Supper of the Lamb. This is not going to be for somebody that is a beginner. This is definitely going to be a study manual for you to learn and receive a lot of knowledge. But, yeah, I mean, this is just a lot of data. You could go through this probably for years and just have a reference after reference after reference. So, like even myself, I've been looking, you sent me this several weeks ago, and as many times as I've gone through it, I still pick up something new every time. So walk us through some more of these events, if you would.
Yeah, I guess we could talk about the fifth seal, and that's going to be, when the sunset on April 22nd, fifth seal, the actual people, the martyrs, resurrection. You look at it like harvests. You have the barley harvest, and you have a wheat harvest. And barley is harvested by wind, and that represents like the first of the first fruits. And then the wheat is harvested by an actual machine, you could call it, called a tribulum. And that's how the remaining, remnant of the body of Christ, the wheat, they have to be, some people can be harvested by the Spirit, and some people can have to be harvested by tribulation. And that just depends on what category you fall into. But as far as the simultaneously, when the people come up out of the graves and they disappear, at that point in time, like I said, Satan is cast down, and he knows he has a short time left before he's going to get chained up and whatnot. And that's the wrath of Satan, the great tribulation. Well, as you move forward, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. What's going to happen from now until 2017? That's something that I should have asked at the very beginning. I mean, we're seeing a lot of turmoil right now. You've got possible, martial law in France.
Right. We're just going to see a continued escalation of what we're seeing on daily news. It's about, ultimately right now, it's about, America really is ultimately the final nation that needs to have their guns taken away. And this is all play on that fear and terrorism to implement their Dragon United Nations system of control. And ultimately, the joke's on them, They're being controlled. The Bible says that they're the ones that are being controlled by God as puppets. And unfortunately, they've chosen to be used as vessels of dishonor, and they've sold out to the great lie of Satan, of fame, fortune, control, whatever it may be for a time and a season. But unfortunately, they're not going to make it.
Now, what do you see Nibiru actually? Is Nibiru, in your opinion, wormwood?
That's a great question. I think it's a part of it. I don't get too caught up in all this semantics of it because, I mean, it's a planet, it's a brown dwarf star, it's a magnet. You call it whatever you want it is. All I know is it's causing huge destruction, and God's going to use it for His end time plan. And wormwood definitely could be a part of that system itself, obviously.
And you've put dates to wormwood, though. You've actually put dates to the time of the red Kachina coming back and possibly causing some chaos, global turmoil, etc.
Yes, it was the same correlation that I think David Mead, I think, wrote a book, and he said the same date.
Yeah, he was on our show. Matter of fact, David said that. I think also Bob Fletcher has said the same thing. I'm not sure what Gil Broussard says on that information. 2000. I think Jason Jeffries, he's been on our show several times. He put some dates as far as something in Revelation being, I think, in 2017 as well. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I know David said October 5th, and he's spot on. The Bible now is clearly confirming it as well. You can even go to the fact that Revelation 12:3 is the 208th verse from the end of the Bible, and October 5th is the 280th day. So even the position of the Bible verses, for example, the reason why there's 22 chapters in the book of Revelation and there's 404 verses, just a very breakdown of the Bible, is because 404 divided by 22 is 18.36, and 6:23 p.m. is 18.36 hours of the day.
Well, and why are there certain numbers that seem to continue to flow when you read specific books, whether it be ancient texts, Abrahamic texts, sometimes the occult mysticism?
Because, great question. If you look at just the number 3186, and I think that's on page, are you going to be doing online stream with that? You can probably put my book up too. That'd be cool for the people who can see it.
Sure. I can't do the screen share right now because I'm calling you on a landline,
okay,
but I can always overlay it.
You have the book in front of you?
Yeah, sure do.
Okay. So if you look at page 31, it's just basically God uses these numbers because he's expressing himself. He's expressing his wisdom. It comes down to the phi ratio, the square root of 5 plus or minus 1 divided by 2, which is 61803, and that's Lord Jesus Christ value in Greek. I mean, he was born in 3168 north latitude. I mean, the reason why all these things are the way they are is because it's expressing to us with overwhelming evidence that he's going to use these numbers and, reveal himself to us, and ultimately certain times of when things will occur and whatnot. The Pyramid of Giza is just another representation of our consciousness of DNA. It's also the Bible written in stone. The very dimensions of the Pyramid of Giza, the volume, the cornerstone, which I talked about, the New Jerusalem, the dimensions of the New Jerusalem. These are all the ancient numbers that have really been kept away from us. And distance hides time. The angle from when Moses led the Hebrews out of Egypt, the angle from Giza to Bethlehem in Jordan is 26.3 degrees. That's 6:23 p.m. Jesus was conceived on the 263rd day of Moses' calendar. Jesus rose at 6:23 a.m. sunrise. So Jesus died. Here's a good way to look at it. Jesus died 3:01 p.m. Rose 6:23 a.m. Jesus comes back October 3rd, 6:23 p.m. sunset. So the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus. So if you look at the life of Jesus, the reason why he lived that long, why he was born on this day, why did he resurrect at this time? Why did he raise from the Mount of Olives in front of his friends? Because those all encoded the time for our future time.
And you brought up Revelation as well, and with the New Jerusalem. And I'm looking at the New Jerusalem passage right now in the Bible, and it talks about the measurements of this New Jerusalem descending from heaven. And when I read this passage, man, I'm telling you, it sounds like something out of sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars. It literally describes what reminds me of this giant Borg cube that descends from space. I mean, with the way what is it to you?
It's actually a cube inside of a sphere.
So you do look at it as the literal translation is what it says as well, then?
Yes, it's the body of believers inside the city, encapsulated a cube inside of a sphere.
And you think that this is where God resides?
Well, I think that his throne is there, yeah. His physical throne is in the New Jerusalem, yeah.
You know the part where he talks about how, and I'm referring to, was it Paul that had this vision, or was it John of Revelation? Who was it that had the vision?
Yeah, John.
Okay. So he talks about how he sees these beings worshiping the Mighty One 24/7, essentially bowing and worshiping him, and they've got these eyeballs all around their bodies and these weird, I guess, almost animal parts on their body as well. What's your take on that? I mean, is that literal as well?
Absolutely. Spot on, for sure. Definitely. God can do anything. If all of our hairs, once I figured out once I saw the verse that if all of our hairs are numbered, then pretty much everything else is numbered. It sure is. And he's the wonderful number. When he spoke to Daniel in the book, in Daniel chapter 8, he was known as that certain saint. And Palmoni was his actual name, and the original King James put it in the side paragraph of it and wrote it out. And that's the wonderful number, and he is the wonderful number. And everything's perfectly on point. Everything's precise to the very millisecond. Yeah, the very fact that there's 31,102 Bible verses. Jesus was conceived, he was born, he was named, he was baptized, and he died all at exactly 3:01:12 p.m. the 12th second. So 3:01:12, and that's the reason why there's 31,102 Bible verses. And now there's 138 unnumbered Bible verses in the book of Psalms, and when you add that to that number, that's 31,240 Bible verses, numbered and unnumbered, and that's when it goes into understanding the secret, which is our DNA 34 by 21 angstroms, which is the reason why there's 357 verses in the book of Daniel, because the square area of our DNA right triangle is 357 square angstroms, and that's why the Holy Spirit came at 37.5% of the day.
So what, is it just like a universal code that's all embedded via numbers?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
You ever heard that song by Trent Reznor? Shame on us, doomed from the start. We're all just zeros and ones.
Yeah, I never heard that song, but it really is.
And if you really look at it, if that's the case, and I'm sorry to interrupt, I mean, if we're all just zeros and ones and numbers, everything breaks down that way, that would point towards the hypothesis of this being like a quantum computer that we're in. Like we're inside of God's computer, essentially.
I actually believe, you could say that's one way of looking at it. I personally believe that God created us out of his own good and will and pleasure, and has given us the opportunity to receive his free gift of salvation so that we can be co-heirs with him for all eternity.
Let's look at some more passages in your book here. Now, you talk about the fall of America on page 342, and you're able to break that down with the Jeremiah passage of 51 through 26. And I was wondering if you could walk us through everything you put together in this.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Okay, you want to just read it verbatim? We can go through it?
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, well, Jeremiah 50 is an inside chapter. Babylon, you had Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and now the seventh is the United Nations. The Rome is, a lot of people, the deadly head wound, that was Rome. It never officially was destroyed. It just received a deadly head wound, and now it's coming back alive. So in Jeremiah 50, it says, the word of the Lord spake against Babylon. So whenever you see Babylon in the Bible, you just go ahead and put America in there. Babylon was the eagle, we're the eagle. And against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare ye among the nations and publicize and set up a standard, publish it and conceal it not. Say, Babylon is taken. Bel is confounded. Merodach is broken in pieces. Her idols are confounded. Her images are broken in pieces. For out of the north, Russia, directly north of us, there cometh up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall remove, they shall depart, both man and beast. And in those days and at that time, saith the Lord, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Judah together, going and weeping, they shall go and seek the Lord their God. They shall ask the way to Zion, with their faces that of ward, saying, come, let us join ourselves to the Lord in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds, meaning the apostate churches and wolves in sheep's clothing, I added that, have caused them to go astray, and they have turned away from the mountains. They have gone from the mountain to the hill, meaning that they've gone from the spiritual mountain, which is the word, and they've left the mountain and they went to the hill of denominations of confusion. They have forgotten their resting place. All that found them have devoured them, and their adversaries said, we offend not, because they have sinned against the Lord, the habitation of justice, even the Lord, the hope of the fathers. Remove out of the midst of Babylon, and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as the he-goats before the flocks. For I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and he shall set themselves in array against her. And then I have a quote here by Henry Groover, saw the destruction of America on their coastlines in submarines. It says, from thence shall they be taken, their arrows, nuke missiles, arrows are the nuke missiles, shall be as mighty expert men, none shall return in vain, and Chaldea shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Lord. because we were glad, because you rejoiced, O you destroyers of my inheritance, because you have grown fat. Talking about America, grown fat meaning massive accumulation of wealth, as the heifer at grass and below as bulls. Your mother, right? Your mother England, okay? Even England makes the Bible. Your mother England shall be sore confounded, and she that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold the hindermost, okay? This is another hindermost. The youngest posterity, future prophetic nation being America. The hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. Because the wrath of the Lord, it shall be not inhibited, and it shall be wholly desolate. Everyone that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows. There's that new missile again. For she has sinned against the Lord. Shout. Now, there's a Feast of Trumpets. This is the reason why it's going to happen on the Feast of Trumpets. One of the reasons, and another reason why is because kings are crowned on the Feast of Trumpets, and the Lord God, Jesus Christ, will receive the kingdom on the day one of the day of the Lord. But when a man marries a wife, he has to spend time with her 1 year before he goes to war. And so this is the reason why there's 1 year. There's 40 days and 40 nights where the believers have supernatural glorified body. Then they go to heaven for another 325 days. That is 1 year long. And then Jesus comes back to fight. He doesn't really fight. He just, by his presence, he destroys everybody. And then Jerusalem rises to the very top, and the earth is recreated for heaven on earth for 1,000 years. So,
You know that stuff going on right now in France? Were you able to put a date on that or something connected with the Bible and Revelation?
No. Just the fact of kingdom shall rise, ethnicity shall rise against ethnicity. But no dates on that. Just, yeah.
Let's jump into the United Nations and Brexit right now, the possibility of the EU crumbling. It seems like there's a lot of beta tests for a one world government, and there's most likely a clandestine one world government that's been going on for years. I mean, I've talked to insiders within the administration that say they're not worried about China or Russia going after them. They're more worried about a rogue faction that doesn't like what their policies are. And, because they all kind of play ball. Now, you do hear a lot of these threats in the media and the news, but most of the stuff you see on the news is either extremely exaggerated, some type of disinformation. They'll put a lot of little truths in with big lies to offset anything unless you know what to look for. But do you really think that there's going to be a possibility of World War III? And if there is it going to be just because of maybe a few rogue factions that kind of control the lobbyists, the politicians, the defense contractors, et cetera, with all the funds that they've had access to for years?
Well, there's going to be the definition for me as far as World War III is when Russia and China come against America. That's going to be delayed until the day of the Lord. A lot of people think that's going to happen right now, but we're not going to go into World War III. We're going to see massive destruction in the Middle East, and we're seeing that now to bring about the dragon system. And so as far as the World War III America destroyed won't happen until the end of the 7 years. We'll just see an escalation of, you look at the Bible and Nebuchadnezzar in the story with Daniel, it said that when he was turned into a beast, he devoured much flesh, or ate much grass, He ate much grass for 7 years. And that represents the beast nations, devouring other nations through the course of this 7 years' time.
A lot of people have also thought that the dragon could be China.
The dragon is absolutely China. Absolutely, because what happens is that once Russia and China go against America, then China will now go against Russia and take that out. And then that's the final battle of the dragon. And then China will then go against Israel at that last point in time. And Israel will realize that she doesn't have America to help her out anymore. And then that's when she'll cry out to Jesus Christ. And then that's when Jesus comes back, as she's crying out and getting surrounded by the armies of Armageddon and whatnot. China, ultimately, is China.
Now, what have you done to prepare for the possibilities of these cataclysms?
Oh, I just read the word. I don't care about any of that. I'm ready to go if I'm taken out.
Okay.
I don't worry about too much of that.
Okay. So you just kind of feel that you're getting this information out there because it was your calling. And, I mean, you sent me this book. You didn't charge me a dime or nothing for it. And, I mean, this thing is just huge. Like I said, the shipping on it alone was probably $10, man. I really appreciate you sending this out to me. Now, if you give our listeners your website again, please, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best one to go to is the 623 blog. It's a 623 blog, number 6, number 2, number 3, blog.wordpress.com. And you can download the book there for free in color. And then if you want to order the book, I have information there where you can get in contact, and I'll send it out to you.
Hey, fantastic. Now, anything else you got on the horizon? Are you working on a new book?
No, I'm just kind of like Noah right now. I'm resting. And that's about it. I don't know how far you've gotten into the book, but if you want to go just something, we could talk about the Thought Light vehicle for Merkaba.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. I think that's in page
14,000 or 14,020.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. People that enjoy knowledge are going to love this book.
Oh, awesome. That's what it's all about. I'm happy that they'll be blessed by it. I certainly am. If you go to page 408, the very value of the word sun is 640. And that hides exactly when the time the sun is darkened at 640.
Let me jump in.
Verse of the book.
Before you go on this, I just want to, because you brought up the sun, and I've seen the sun box in numerology, which is actually, it's called sometimes the number square, the magic square, etc., and it represents 666. Where do you get the 640?
The value of sun in Hebrew?
Okay.
The word value.
Word
value of
awesome.
sun.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Yeah. And for example, the diameter of the sun is 864,000 miles approximately, and that's why there's 86,400 seconds, and 8 times 6 times 4 is 192, and Jesus was born, died, conceived, etc. 901.2 minutes of the day, which hides the birth of the man-child, the 192nd day on Moses' calendar. It's just like one revolving thing of numbers, and permutations, because there's 4 different calendars. There's the Julian, the Gregorian, God's original calendar, and Moses' calendar, all saying the same thing, overlapping itself. I think you've seen that picture on Skylink. I was on page 410 of the Dragon. I put that in the book.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's what the same coordinates that David Meade had, which I thought was amazing. But the next page, page 411, and this gets talking about the throne of God, which ultimately we are 2 counter-rotating tetrahedrons formulating our Thought Light vehicle, and just how the dimensions of the candlestick break down and create the dimensions of the star tetrahedron, and saying the same thing as our DNA, basically. The throne of God says the same thing as our DNA. And the 7 thunders in the book of Revelation are the 7 equations of the cloud, which is the Thought Light vehicle.
Okay.
So remember when the disciples saw Jesus, he rose in a cloud?
Yes.
Okay, this is what he it's a Thought Light vehicle. And it has the Thought Light vehicle has dimensions to it, which is 8.64 feet is the makeup. And this is the mystery of here's wisdom. Let him calculate the number of a beast, for it's the number of a man. Okay, it's the number of us. 666 is a beautiful wisdom number. Unfortunately, Satan took it and perverted it and made it evil, but it's actually a beautiful wisdom number, because this is the great answer to the 666, is that when you take a tetrahedron, and you add the second tetrahedron, there's a 66.6% volume of the one, and that's the answer to that.
Well, and it also represents, they use that number in so many corporate logos. For example, the Time Warner cable logo, the CERN logo has 3 sixes in it. I think Microsoft, or maybe they used to, I don't know if they still do. And people will look at that as demonic and evil, and maybe they're using it for that, but that's really not where it originated. No,
it originated from God's number, because the wonderful number, Palmoni, has a value of 216, which is 6 times 6 times 6. And so if you look at Revelation 18:23, okay, that 18 times 23 is 423, or 13:18, I'm sorry. Revelation 13:18, okay? Revelation 13:18 is the verse that 666 is in. And 13 times 18 is 234. And so April 22nd becomes April 23rd at sunset. And Satan is kicked out of heaven 16.2 hours of the day, universal time zone. See, this thing is confirmed in universal time zone and Jerusalem time zone. This is the great answer to the 153 fish. Because when it's 6:23 p.m. Jerusalem time zone, it's 15.3 hours of the day for midnight. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on, as you can see. But it's all quite amazing.
Now, and Fukushima happened in 3/11/11. What's your take on the numerology behind Fukushima, and do you have any events that you can correlate with the Bible when that took place, similar to what we were talking about earlier with the Gulf oil spill, and you said that's when Satan had to leave his kingdom?
No, I'm saying that Satan gets kicked out of his kingdom April 22nd on 2021.
Oh, 2021. Okay, but you were bringing up the Gulf oil spill earlier, and you said that
yes,
was...
I was just saying that was a ritual sacrifice preparation for his arrival.
Oh, okay. It was a ritual sacrifice
That's why
separation
it went
for his
down.
arrival. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it was hit on April 20th, and it collapsed on April 22nd, which we know that the Queen of England owns BP, and that's why the mark of the beast is a sunburst, because BP has a sunburst oil. The mark of the beast actually is some type of configuration of the star of Inanna, and Ken Peters actually saw the mark of the beast in a dream he had back in 1980s, and he said that it was a hand within a hand, image within an image, and that's exactly what the word mark means in Greek, shragma, image within an image, surrounded by a star of Inanna.
I've never heard of the Star of Inanna before. Where's that located?
Yeah.
I wonder what the symbolism is behind that.
Yeah, it just all has to do with Allah and Satan, all the Satan worship stuff going on.
Now, have you been able to reference stuff with the Nibiru as well, compared to the Sumerian tablets, where they've got some people reference specific tablets translations to Nibiru being the ultimate planet of this solar system, and also being kind of a rogue destroyer, the cleanser, because it causes mass chaos around other planets around it, etc., according to the translations.
Your phone died. No.
You there?
Hello? Yeah, I lost you.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, I lost you there.
Oh, that's okay. I was just asking if, you look at some of the Sumerian stuff that has been translated from various people, Gerald Clark, Zechariah Sitchin, Mauro Bellino, where there's these translations of Nibiru actually having a 3,600-year orbit and almost being like a cleaner, getting rid of a lot of the cockroaches of the earth is essentially what it portrays. So have you been able to find stuff like that with these number codes and stuff you're putting together too?
Well, the exact orbit of the Red Dragon is 3,553 years. This thing came around when the Exodus was, and the Exodus was 1448 BC. And so, everyone's pretty much spot on as far as it being 3,600, but to be even more accurate, it's actually 3,553, in case you wanted to know. But yeah, I mean, it's an instrument that the Lord has created to fulfill his plan in life. I don't understand. God's in control of everything. I just, I definitely don't understand all of his ways, but he's just using this as a wake-up call to repentance, ultimately. But as far as go ahead.
How close do you think it's going to get, or when do you think it's going to get its closest? Is that the September 17th?
Well, I would assume it would get its closest on when it actually eclipses the sun, because it's in a straight line of us. And so it's going to eclipse the sun exactly when the full moon starts, which is 6:40 Universal Time Zone.
Okay. Be a good time to have a GoPro.
I don't know how long it's going to last, but I know that it's not going to be a good situation.
Won't be the funnest days.
Ultimately going on. Go ahead.
I just said it won't be the funnest days.
No, it won't. It definitely won't. But God will get us through it, and we're here for a time and a reason. I mean, you're created to be doing what you're doing. You're doing a wonderful job. I'd like to say I really value your interviews. I think you're spot on in trying to search for wisdom and truth in all things, and that's awesome. So hats off to you for doing a good job.
Well, I appreciate that. It's certainly something, like you said, I feel like it is my path. Kind of you have your path with these breakdowns, the numbers, the events, the prophecies, the literature that you put together. I mean, it just must have taken you, I can't even imagine how much time it would take to put this together. How much time did you spend on this thing? 6:23 p.m., the marriage supper
I
of the
took
Lamb.
probably 18 hours a day for 2 years.
Jeez. Wow. That's incredible. That kind of sounds like me with the Leak Project, man. Just you just dive in and everything else is a blur, right?
Yeah, everything else was a blur. I just never got tired. People ask me, "Did you get tired?" I'm like, "No, I never did. I never looked at it like. I always looked at it as like a blessing. I felt like just trying to do the best I can for searching truth and wisdom, like you said. And then once everything started opening up, and then once I saw the understanding of the DNA, of how, just amazing that is, that he can hide time in the Pyramid of Giza and the Bible and the Stonehenge and the New Jerusalem. I mean, all saying the same thing. And God just showing himself over and over and over. It just was overwhelming evidence that just moved me to, like, I got to put all this stuff down. And, and that's kind of how it happened, really.
Now, what else that I should have asked but didn't would you like to share with our audience before we close out tonight? Because, I mean, there's just so many gems in here. If there's some things that you think is important, I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure our audience would as well.
Okay, let me think. Well, I think ultimately, and you can definitely, and the book itself, like you said, it definitely is a workbook. And I created it for that, to be a manual. It's not like a read by no means. It's just like maybe look at it for a page and try and dissect or whatnot. But ultimately, I would just like to get to the readers that Jesus Christ is Lord, that his wisdom is eternal. This is the everlasting gospel of, if you look at the very back, I mean, we're in an 8,000-year game plan here for what God was doing, and we're like in Act 5 of 8, per se, or 6 of 8. And we're getting ready to go through a transition of time that is going to be a challenge, no question about it. But God's going to get us through, and those who endure till the end shall be saved. Some people will have to die for their belief in Jesus Christ. But peace on earth is coming, and Satan is going to be bound for 1,000 years. And Satan then going to be released again. And he's going to deceive the nations for a time and a season. And then we have another 1,000 years of practice run for eternity. And then after that, eternity starts. So we're in an 8,000-year overview game plan, and we're getting ready to go into the final 2,000 years of this game plan. So we were created for this time and season, and through the power of internet, media, whatnot, I mean, we can truly cast our net into the sea of consciousness, really, and, get this word out to across the world instantaneously. And it's a heart thing, it's only God knows your heart, and I've been to a place where I have a broken and contrite spirit, and I've been humbled, and it's all him, and I'm just going along for the ride. It's his way, whatever he says. And understanding his plan for humanity and being a part of just sharing some of the wisdom that the Lord showed me. And I'm just very joyful for the fact of God's wisdom and his plan. And, and we can just lean on him in all things and seeing him face to face. That's the reason why King Solomon's temple was 60 cubits by 20 cubits by 30 cubits, because that hides 623 as well. And the hypotenuse of our DNA is 6.32 squared angstroms. That hides 623 p.m. He moves in straight lines. He gets right to the point. That's why he reveals himself in right triangles, geometry, etc. And that's about it.
Well, it's some real powerful stuff. I certainly appreciate you coming on the show with us, Jacob. If you ever have an opportunity to come on again, I'd love to speak with you. We'll pick your brain again. We'll have some really good questions. Maybe we could get a audience to listen to the presentation, and they could have questions too. They could interject. And this has been great. I would recommend our listeners go check out the website, 623blog.wordpress.com. Also, if you go to leakproject.com and you want to become a contributing member, you'll have access to over 200 full-featured podcasts, ad-free. You can either download them or listen to them on the website. Live streaming is totally up to you. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Good night. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leak Project. I'm your host, Rex Bear, and tonight we're going to be discussing a new book that came out called 6:23 p.m., The Marriage Supper of the Lamb. It's more like an encyclopedia, and Jacob put this together. He said he spent several years, up to 18 hours a day, and he just felt like he was in the zone the entire time. And essentially what this is, folks, is it's almost like a study guide. He's got different graphs, charts, sequences. He takes prophecies. He takes a lot of stuff in the Bible, breaks it down, and shows you what he refers to as the God Code, essentially. It's quite incredible. If you go to leakproject.com and you become a member at Leak Project, you'll actually have access to exclusive content. Just log in, create a profile. It's very easy to do. It's absolutely free. And then that will give you access to podcasts, either streamable or downloadable. You can even get them ad-free. Or you can go to youtube.com/clandestine time lord, subscribe, get access to the latest podcasts. Hope you're doing good wherever you are. Have a wonderful day. Be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Talk to you soon. Have you ever seen the series Lost?
You know, I've heard of it. I haven't probably sat down and watched 10 minutes of it. I really never got into it.
The only reason I ask is because there's this really interesting correlation of numbers throughout the series that pop up in different vehicles and behind the scenes, etc. And it's 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. And it had this weird mysticism behind it the whole time. And you're such a numbers guy, I just thought I'd ask. So, all right, well, fantastic. And as I said before, I mean, this thing is literally humongous. The 400 and something pages that it is, each page is like the size of 4 pages. I know that the font is a little bit bigger, which is nice for people like myself so I can read it better. And, you know, why did you put this thing together? How did you get started with this?
Well, I guess it was part of my destiny, you know. It was my gift to humanity. And to always wanted to know all things, or, you know, to go in that direction of understanding why everything is. You know, why is there so many, you know, Bible verses in the Bible? Why is there 66 chapters? I mean, just the questions just never stopped, and I just continued to. So I started my journey back in 1997 when I became a Christian. My grandmother led me to the Lord, and that started my journey. And now here we are, almost 20 years later, and I completed the book in finality about 2 months ago, and it was just my quest of understanding. You know, the Bible says that He'll give us the hidden manna, which is numbers, the hidden bread come down from heaven. And once you understood what the secret was in Daniel, which is understanding of our DNA and how the kingdom of God is within us, so the very dimensions of our DNA hide, you know, the end time scenario. So everyone's walking around, you know, with the truth in them, and it's just about becoming consciously aware of, you know, our ultimate destiny to be co-heirs with Jesus Christ.
And I'm looking at one of the first pages here, and it says, Lord Jesus Christ and His bride of 200 million. The marriage supper of the Lamb, and then you have a reference of Psalms 45:11. But down here, you talk about the number of guests, white horse riders, 144,000, and then wise virgins without number. Location, third heaven, New Jerusalem City. Time, 6:23 p.m. Jerusalem time zone. Day, solar day, 11/11/2021. Duration, 3/24 days. Okay. Yeah, man, thank you. You're on it. This guy did write the book. Yeah, you know, it's funny. Sometimes I'll interview people that wrote certain books, and I'll ask them questions, and they'll have to go back and read the material. You were right on the ball with that. That's awesome. So explain this to us. What does this mean?
Well, there's nothing new under the sun, and history is going to repeat itself. Same story, different cast and characters. Just like it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be like at the coming of the Son of Man. You look at Jesus' life was a type and shadow of things to come. What it ultimately means is that the kingdom of God is now going to openly manifest at the same time with when the dragon system of the New World Order launches simultaneously. So if you notice that one of the first things of when Peter spoke, when the Holy Spirit fell, he spoke of signs and wonders in heaven, and that correlation of now our future time of Revelation 12, verses 1 and 2, which will be seen in the heavens, which is a grand sign, a wonderful sign. Many people, it's going all over YouTube. I believe there's people who have been specific books about it. The sign in the heaven, it's a huge wake-up call to humanity, to, you know, God getting our attention. Unfortunately, God's only getting the people's attention that need to get attention. And as we go through, as we go forward through the tribulation and ultimately into the day of the Lord, there'll be more wake-up signs. But right now, what God is doing is He's raising up people who are receiving the hidden manna, and getting ready to go forth. That's called I don't know how versed you are with the Bible in the book of Revelation, but it speaks of the birth of the man-child. And the man-child is a term used for the 144,000 people that will receive the supernatural power at the same time that the red dragon, Planet X, eclipses the sun at 6:40 p.m. on October 5th, 2017. And when that happens, God will release the latter rain anointing upon these 144,000, whoever they are. And that's really when the tribulation starts, obviously. It's like a barley harvest and a wheat harvest, and that God has to break up the fallow ground. Anytime you want to plant, you always have to break up the ground. And that's ultimately what Planet X is going to do, is going to break up the ground. To launch, it's ultimately a final call of mercy, God's mercy upon humanity, to draw his children back to him. You know, all the world's been playing, we're just actors. And knowing our roles in each and how we go about to use our gifts and talents to raise up the body of Christ for this end time harvest, and to ultimately bring in peace on earth. So that's kind of an overview synopsis. A lot of people don't understand this, and I want to make this clear for those who are just maybe starting to understand Bible prophecy or a little confusion, is that it's important to remember that there's 7 years of tribulation. And the last 3.5 years of those 7 years is known as the Great Tribulation. But after those final 7 years, there's another year called the Day of the Lord, and that's 1 year long. That represents the Noah's flood year. That's why God came to Noah 7 days before the flood. That represents for our time 7 years. So the story is hidden in the very, breakdown of the days of when the flood came. Why did it rain 40 days and 40 nights? And the reason why it rained 40 days and 40 nights is because when the flood came on the second month, 17th day, and if you go 40 days and 40 nights ahead of that, that gets you to the third month, 26th day, and that's where you find the marriage supper of the Lamb, which is 6:23 p.m. So the first miracle that Jesus did is he turned water into wine at the marriage supper. Well, God, in all of his wisdom and knowledge, he can do whatever he wants, so he told this beautiful story, and by the very dimensions, the number of the water pots, 6 water pots, and the